It's now 12 consecutive years of crime reduction, the most of any big city in the country, the most consecutive at any time in Dallas's history. We have crime records going back to 1930, and the crime reduction over this 12-year period is 52%. Just last year, we had the lowest homicide rate since 1930 in this city. So it is probably the greatest story that you've never heard. It is really dramatic, and the men and women in blue of this generation are the best cops we've seen. And it's a thankless job because you never hear stories like that. The stories you hear are the controversial stories that pit police against communities, black against white, and those are the stories you hear. But I came with just a bit of good news about the crime story in Dallas. It is really a great story to tell. And I tell it everywhere I go, particularly when I'm in front of news reporters. But again, it's an uphill story to tell because it's not controversial. So Dallas is safer than it's been in 50 years, in some categories in 80 years. We have our challenges. Dallas has 380 square miles. 6% of Dallas's geography accounts for more than 40% of its crime. I'm going to say that slow again. 6% of that 380 square miles accounts for 40% of Dallas's crime. And so from a practical standpoint, when it comes to fighting crime, by us gleaning, embedding that type of data and where that crime is, we can easily deploy our resources to the areas that will yield the most dramatic declines. The negative side of that is that those crime hotspots have been crime hotspots since I was a young kid in this city. And so it is not a one-off situation or where we need to be to help make Dallas the safest it can be. It's about poverty, it's about high victimization, where you have dense poverty. It's about all the usual suspects of failing schools. It's where high unemployment is. It's where you have a lot of apathy in the city, built on top of all those things I mentioned. And so it's great to deploy resources around areas that is a small portion of the city, but it's not such a great story to tell about where it's happening and how long it's been happening. Of course, Dallas is going through an economic boom, and some of those areas are changing as we speak. West Dallas is changing quite a bit. If you've not been to Trinity Groves, go to Trinity Groves and eat. It's a great place, but just 30 years ago, it wasn't such a great place, but it's transforming itself. Uptown, what you see uptown now was one of the most dangerous areas in our city in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. And through economic development, it's changed quite a bit. So what Mr. Human and you all have done at Jubilee is how you, over long periods of time, change the city. It's how you make it safer. I'd like to take credit for Uptown's development through crime reduction, but it had much more to do with economic development, giving people a way out of poverty to a better place. And so I know it's really a broad subject, but let me talk more specifically about what you might read about policing right now. You'll hear that the police officers are at this adversarial relationship with communities of color. That's what you'll hear, and parts of that is true. And it's true not necessarily because of the facts, it's true because of a generational disconnect between these communities of color and the government. So just think back to the 1960s. I was a young child, so some of you I know are much older than me. So I'm sure the 60s was just like yesterday to some of you. So those are the most difficult times in our country as it relates to civil rights. And many things change as it relates to civil rights. But just prior to those changes was, particularly in the South, harsh Jim Crow laws, separate but equal. And who enforced the Jim Crow laws? Police departments across this country. If you sat at the front of the bus instead of the back of the bus, the police got called on. If you sat at a lunch counter that was segregated, the police got called to take you from the lunch counter. If you were protesting during the 60s, it was the police you see in those black and white images of sicking dogs on people and doing the water hoses, because the governments of that time were using the police departments as the enforcers of unjust laws. And so the images of people of color of bad government is this blue uniform. And so great-grandmothers and grandmothers are telling these stories about how they were treated to their grandkids. And 3 generations ago, this is a generation ago, this is how we were treated. And so no matter what happens usually in a police shooting scenario, the facts are blurred from the experience from that time. And it's a scab that hadn't healed. And believe it or not, police officers have become the social service of last resort. We are. We're usually the only parts of government that are in these communities in a large way by answering those 911 calls. We are the only government agency that makes house calls. Think about it. We call 911, we are going to make a house call. Right? And so we're front and center, the face of government. And in these communities that criticize us the most, they need us the most. So don't try to get in the head of a cop going to a 911 call to a community that criticizes us the most, and they need us the most. I'd love to write an article once I retire about a day without a cop. Just think if the police didn't respond just one day, that they took a leave. None of us could survive one day without police officers, not one day. And so we're needed the most, particularly in these areas, and there's a hypercritical environment in these areas right now that has been ongoing for more than, I would say, a year and a half now. You look back to Ferguson, Missouri, that was just a year ago, but prior to that, there were controversy after controversy after controversy, and many of the facts of those controversies are not matched with the controversy. It's the history of the experience with police officers in these communities, mostly from the 1960s. And so activists will call upon those experiences to rally people to be adversarial with police departments. And the challenge of a 21-year-old cop or a 25-year-old cop, that's the reality of what's in our police forces now, is that the baby boomers hired 30 plus years ago are leaving police departments, and young cops who read about the civil rights movement in the 60s have no experience that these communities are feeling this way. And they're wanting to be judged on the facts of what happened and not those experiences. And so when you say, what do you need? The first thing we need from you is to understand this dynamic differently than how maybe media will portray it. That's the first thing we need. So front and center for police chiefs like me all across this country is this idea that police officers are racist and police officers are shooting unarmed black men, young men, just with impunity. When the reality is, it's a very rare occasion that a police shooting happens. Most police officers go through a long career without ever drawing a weapon. I've just celebrated my 32nd year with the police department. So I'm talking about what I know. It's rare to have to use deadly force as a police officer, not just in Dallas, anywhere. We make over 50,000 arrests in Dallas each year. We make over 200,000 traffic stops each year. We answer over 500,000 911 calls each year. So that's upwards of 750,000 contacts with the public. And the number of police-involved shootings this year is 7. Where people have drawn guns on us, tried to kill us, or tried to kill other people, and we had to intervene by using deadly force as a last resort. But none of those other 750,000 contacts that the outcome was exactly like you want, very professional, brave, with courage, gets told. The 7 times that we have to use force gets told. So awareness and understanding to groups like yours is number 1. Number 2 is we hold people accountable for violating our policies. There is a higher standard of conduct for police officers, above and beyond the regular citizen, not in this profession. And it is a tough day when I have to terminate a police officer for misconduct. It's a tough day. And they don't like it. And as much as I don't like it, it's my obligation to make sure that we maintain our higher standard of conduct. So it is why, when I talk about the tenure of major city police chiefs being like 3 years, that's why. You're often caught in a no-win situation. If you don't take action, you might encourage bad conduct. If you do take action, you might get accused of not supporting the rank and file. And then the community shout at you because of 50 years of experience that may not necessarily match the actual facts of what happened. You either get tired, get worn out, or you make a wrong decision as a chief, and it's your time to move on. So I need your prayers. I need your prayers to help me make the right decision. And even more so, just to put more on your plate in understanding this dynamic with police officers in the community right now. Officers are afraid to have their names put out to the public when they're involved in a critical incident, because officers are, like most young people now, they're on Facebook and Twitter and they're all on social media, so it's easy to harass an officer when you have a name out in the public realm through social media. And they do get harassed on social media because you can be anonymous and say all these ugly things on the internet. And so that's a tough thing. The way Texas law is currently crafted, the name of officer is a public record. There's no exemption to protect it the way the law is written. So we have to release it, or we violate the open records law. Unless we have a specific threat, then we won't release, and we'll ask for an attorney general opinion. But officers have the spirit of fear. They fear what might happen to them. You've read about the ambushes of police officers that just, put gas in their car, or just sitting in their car doing a report, and someone mentally ill comes up and kills them. So this fear is not just that, some thought they have. It's real to officers, that they fear the environment that we're in now, when people claim they're racist and claim that they shoot people without cause. And so we need not only for you to pray for me, pray for our officers. And pray, this idea that we have this fear is not healthy for our profession. It is not. And I'm in church, so I think it's okay to quote scripture. So 2 Timothy 1:7 says, the Lord has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of a sound mind and of strength. Let me interpret that for you. The men and women in blue not only have great power and authority, they match that power and authority with great courage and bravery. It's what it takes to put your life on the line. Be willing to sacrifice your life for someone first you don't know, and for someone that might criticize you the next day. It takes great courage. I don't know that I have many volunteers either in this room or in many rooms I go to go down those dark alleys and make those split-second decisions, knowing that you're going to get criticized, not necessarily just on the facts, but maybe only on the experiences that community has with police departments from 50 years ago, or whether or not you were using force appropriately. So that is the challenge of our profession. It's why body cameras have become popular. People don't generally, at least the loud voices, don't generally believe what an officer says. They want to see it on video. They don't believe what we say. There's no benefit of the doubt that you did the right thing. So, we're outfitting officers with body cameras. I rode out with an officer the other day, and I hired on in 1983, so I told the officer before I even sat down, I'm a 1980s cop trying to fit into a 21st century squad car. There's a laptop right in the middle of the console. There's a dash cam right above where the mirror goes. And then the police radio is right against you. Your leg if you sit in the driver's seat. Then there's a cage separating the prisoner from the deal. And if you push the wrong button, it starts recording what we're saying inside the car. So most officers say, "Chief, don't touch anything." Don't touch anything. Because in 1983 there was pre-cell phone invention. Well, I guess it was invented, but it wasn't practical use for individuals. There was no laptop in the car. I had a notepad and a Maps Go, and I tell the young cops, Google Maps Go. It's how we got around before GPS. And I would have my radio, and I'd get dispatched, and I'd write down the address, and I'd look it up on the Maps Go and hold it up as I'm driving. And if I was going south, I had to turn it upside down. And so I sit and listen to really young cops acclimate me to how they type up their own reports. That everything they do is being recorded on the dash cam when they make a traffic stop, including audio. And that the new body camera that we began implementing a month ago shows a view of everything they're experiencing from a 180 degrees. So everything to the farthest corners of their view forward is shown on the body cam in HD. Right? And then if they draw their taser to use, it automatically turns on anybody within 30 feet of them that has a body cam. And so I try to use things from my childhood. Smile you on candid camera. Nobody got that in the squad car. What's candid camera? I said, that was a show back in the 60s. Anyway, you're actually often have to assume, basically with the cell phone and smartphones, just assume you're being recorded. And assume that the recording will be edited to the worst portions of the video with your conduct and behavior. So, again, officers have a very difficult job. I just gave you a glimpse of the difficulties. But again, you have what I would say is the best department in the country. And I quoted those statistics. We've reduced crime more than New York, more than Philadelphia, more than Chicago, LA. Name a big city. Dallas has outperformed that big city in over a decade now. In 12 years. More than Frisco, more than Plano, more than Fort Worth, more than McKinney. More. Dallas has performed better. And more professionally. It's not a coincidence that there hadn't been the same types of protests and property destruction because we engage the community. We have officers that take on community policing as a philosophy. And we engage young people. Just last year, our youth program in our department reached over 92,000 young people in our city, in the highest crime areas of the city, reshaping their opinions from the 1960s that they heard from their grandmother. Because we don't want to wait till a crisis to try to establish a relationship. We want to establish a relationship when there's no crisis. And so there's midnight basketball, so they're going home tired, so they're not chasing all night. So we do kind of things strategically. Soccer is really popular with our youth program. Boxing is really popular with our youth program. We have, not only that, we have after school things related to academics that our officers are in the school, supported by Verizon Corporation, teaching character in an off-duty capacity. So we get it that, you know, you can't put everybody in jail. I mentioned we arrest 50,000 people every year. Our county jail only holds 5,000, right? So, you know, I'm a DISD graduate, but that's easy math, right? 5,000, 50,000. So you cannot arrest your way out of this crime predicament that some communities experience. It's not practical to arrest your way out of it. When I came on in the 80s, it was arrest them all and let God sort them out. That was how I was trained. Just arrest them all and let God sort them out. Well, God may be speaking to us in a different way about how we can prevent crime from happening in the first place through that type of engagement, through things like Jubilee Park. Crime prevention is a part of our mission as well as enforcing and investigating. So we have great men and women in blue. You've had a dramatic drop in crime, much more than any parts of the country, more dramatic than any other time in the city's history, and you should be very proud. And I would want to close with this. When you see an officer, what they don't hear is thank you. They don't hear it. They don't hear thank you. They don't get a pat on the back. I would do it from the front, not from behind right now. We're kind of sensitive right now, so don't forget to get somebody on the back and say thank you. Boy, a small, I appreciate you, thank you, will go a long way now. It will. It will turn a frown to a smile. It will keep us encouraged to risk our lives for people. So not only your prayers, we need you to express your appreciation. Every time you see a cop, please help me show appreciation, because they're not getting that. They only hear the loud voices of controversy and adversary and people not appreciating what they do. So I know there's a silent majority of people that appreciate the cops, and we are asking not to be so silent now, that it's timely for you to say thank you, very timely, as much as you can, any way you can. Letters to the editor. If you are on social media, right now the people who don't appreciate us much are dominating social media and the internet with negativity toward cops. So get your grandkids and your kids to show you how to say thank you. We appreciate you on Twitter. We appreciate you on Facebook. The Dallas Police Department has a Facebook page. We have a Twitter account. We have a large presence on social media. Follow us on social media. Like us on Facebook. Show your appreciation in the way people communicate now. And then when you see a cop, do the same. I've said enough. I usually talk from the heart. I'm a Christian, a person of faith. It keeps me going. I'm not ashamed of the gospel. I really do pray for our men and women in groups. Like I said, I've been chief a little over 5 years now. And every day, I thank the good Lord that we had an officer. Every day. 6 years is the longest period, going back to when we kept records of officers being lost in the line of duty, is the longest period of time. 6 years that we hadn't lost an officer. So we, knock on wood, I don't know, say a prayer, I don't know how, I'm Baptist, so I don't know how to do that. But we have been very blessed not to have lost an officer during my tenure. The longest period is 6 years, so to make the next year without losing an officer on my tenure, the longest time on record that we had lost an officer for our felonious assault in a period of time. So, I mean, we're doing something right here in Dallas. You should be proud of your city. I'm third generation Dallas, so I'm proud to be a part of this city. It is a great place to live and worship. So thank you all so much, and Walter, we'll have time for a question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Question? Yes, sir.
Chief, thanks for your service. Could you speak to the current relationship between the police department and the district attorney's office?
Yeah, you know, I didn't know Ms.
Repeat the
Hawk.
question for the folks in the back.
Sure. So the question was, what's the police department's relationship with the district attorney's office? I didn't know Ms. Hawk before. I didn't know her as a judge, and so I met her since she's been elected. I've been impressed with her, my interactions with her. We knew her second in command as she afforded Ms. Maxson. She's really on top of things. We have worked with the staff there, and we like what we see. And you know, again, I have been through personal tragedy as a public official. I know what it's like to have your personal business on the front page. I'm impressed with people that can go through adversity and come out on the other end. I believe in redemption as a part of my faith. And so I'm pulling for Ms. Hawk. I am, just from a personal standpoint. I understand the concerns, but I'm much more inclined to celebrate redemption and people overcoming adversity in their personal life. I'm just who I am as a person, and I'm just hopeful that her friends would not be so public with her personal information. It's a difficult thing at best to deal with, and I'm praying for it. I would hope that even if those who have concerns about her ability to do the job would offer up prayers for her challenges right now.
Question?
Yes.
Would you care to comment on the various issues that are being discussed about gun control these days?
Right. The question is, would I care to comment about the various issues that is being discussed about gun control? And the quick answer is no. I hate talking about gun control. Because I know I'm in Texas, and I know we just passed open carry as opposed to concealed carry, and police officers were not for open carry, particularly campus carry on college campuses, and so we have great concerns because we have to make those judgment calls on who's permitted and who's not when we answer calls, and so we don't like it, but we do support the Second Amendment. Most cops are hunters, and we use our guns, and we grew up with guns. I didn't. My first gun was at the police academy, and it's the only gun I've ever owned. It's a gun the city issues me, so I'm not. But many of my friends sit in deer stands and put out feed and kill Bambi. So what did Bambi ever do to you? I don't know. They tell me it's a sport, and they're my friends, so I trust that it's a sport.
Question at the way back.
Yes.
Yep.
Would you care to comment on recruitment and how that is going for you in light of all this negative publicity, not in Dallas, but across the country?
Yes, it is becoming more difficult to recruit the right people to our profession. We still have long lines of people wanting to be cops, but only 1 in 10 will pass our background that applies. And so it's still a very, very noble profession where we get people willing to do the job right, applying. For Dallas, our starting pay has never been competitive with the area. We've always had a low starting pay, but we also always had a great pension, one of the great pensions in the country. You know anything about pensions? We have a defined benefit pension, which is one of the best pensions to have if it's doing well. That's all I do in that caveat. If it's not doing well, it's not one of the best pensions to have because members run the pension and they tend not to want to do the right things as it relates to when the pension is not doing well, and therefore we're having to make some tough calls on our pension. And so the selling point for Dallas cops have always been, you're not going to start at the highest, but one day you'll have this great pension. And now with the pension not in such great shape, it's a hard sell to have low starting salaries and not to have the best pension in the area. And so we're going to be negotiating a new meet and confer contract, which is somewhat like collective bargaining next year, 2016. I'm hopeful that the mayor and council will raise our starting pay such that we're much more competitive so we can keep getting some of the best candidates to our profession here in Dallas. It's going to be a tough battle because Dallas has horrible streets and potholes are expensive and street repair is expensive, and we'll be starting discussions with citizens about a bond package in 2017. And again, economic development is one of the big efforts that the mayor has with his Grow South campaign. And so police officers starting pay will be competing with those things, with streets, with other issues that will help make Dallas great. So we're hopeful we'll have your support as we go into next year and compete for those dollars, those tax dollars, to be set aside, some for starting pay to be increased. Just to give you an idea, Dallas' starting pay is $46,000 a year. Grand Prairie's is $57,000. Plano's is $61,000. Starting pay. Fort Worth is $55,000. So we're well below market, and our cops. It's interesting though. Of course, I wear these glasses because I am a nerd. So we have statistics on attrition rates going back 42 years. So we have a 1973 attrition rates to today, every year. So I asked that information here recently. And so the average attrition rate over that period is 6%. So 6% of the department for 42 years has been the attrition rate. And that's the attrition rate today. The highs have been 10%, and there have been some 8%. The lows have been 4%. And so the average is 6% attrition, and that's what the attrition rate is today. And our unions have been very clever in saying that attrition is high because of the low starting pay. And I tell the union bosses, I say, whatever you got to say, I say, I'm on board with you. You know, I'll ask for forgiveness Sunday, but you know, attrition is about the same. But we do need a raise because we're not competitive with the starting salaries around North Texas.
Last question, Phil. Stand up, please.
The thing I might add, I understand Dallas is a sanctuary city, and if so, why? And what impact will these refugees from the Middle East make on the impact they make here on your police force in Dallas?
Okay, let me start my answer by saying I am not a politician nor a member of Congress or a member of the city council. So I'm going to start by saying that I don't believe the definition of sanctuary city would have Dallas in that category. I don't believe that. But the definition of sanctuary city is in the eye of the beholder. Some people define sanctuary city as when their police departments don't enforce immigration laws. And if you had that broader definition, our department doesn't, but the county sheriff will take information we have determined for a person not to be from this country, not whether they're illegal, whether they're from this country, on our booking sheet, and forward that to, we don't run our own jail, the county runs the jail, the city leases jail space from the county. And then the county sheriff will forward all the non-U.S. citizen information to immigration authorities in the area. And immigration authorities then, based on whatever their definition is that day of who gets deported, will deport, because they don't deport everybody that we arrest. They deport certain ones. Felonies, I believe, get deported, but I'm not sure all the time. Because sometimes you want them to be tried and convicted. Say if it's a murder, the illegal immigrant commits a murder, you want them tried and convicted and spend time in jail. You don't want them deported just to come right back, right? So not every felon gets deported. Some will sit in jail be tried and convicted and do their time and then get deported. So not every case get deported. It's a complex system. I mentioned we arrest 50,000 people a year. The county jail holds 5,000. So here's the question I always throw back to the sanctuary city. Start enforcing immigration laws. Raise your hand if you want to raise taxes. Raise your taxes to create more jail bed space. Because that's what it will require. Not only securing the border, not only staffing immigration authorities with enough people to deport, but it will also mean expanding your county jails significantly. There's a lot of people in major cities that are not here legally. And we do all we can with 3,500 cops arresting 50,000 people. We inform the authorities who's not in the country, who are not U.S. citizens, and they use their processes to decide who to deport and not to deport. And if we wanted our police department to begin enforcing immigration laws, we need to first expand our jail bed space, probably 100 to 200 fold, to be able to house the illegal immigrants that we would now begin arresting as doing the federal government's job at the local level. So either the federal authority to give us that money at the county level to expand our jails, give it to the states, otherwise we can give it to the cities, or the federal government needs to take on their charge of enforcing the immigration laws. That's their charge. And that's where the biggest failures are, in my opinion. Good question.
Okay, one more. And then
Operating under the principle that you cannot believe everything you read
Yes,
in
sir.
the paper, would you mind clarifying for us how you feel or what your position is on revealing the identity
Yeah.
of other police officers or detectives that are involved in a deadly shooting
Yes.
until at least all of the investigation is done and a conclusion or decision has been made?
Right.
And I'm thinking of Baltimore
Yes.
at this moment, but I don't equate, and I don't think anybody should equate the two cities.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that something horrific like what has happened in Baltimore cannot happen in Dallas in years to come.
Right. So I always go back, just try to get as much facts as I can when I try to answer questions like this. And I anticipate questions like this coming to me, and not just here, but just almost anywhere I go, I get a question about the latest news items. So the Texas law does not exempt officers' names, which means you have to release it. The exemption that is in the open records law in Texas is if there's a specific threat to an officer, then you can exempt their name being released. So if we did not release officers' names, we would be violating the law and get sued by the Morning News and WFAA and NBC and Fox 4. And that's, you know, the media believes the public has a right to know. Put that in the open records law, and we're required to release their name. The best we could do is delay the name being released. And that's what happened in Ferguson, Missouri, that police chief decided to delay the officer's name being released, and you see what happened in Ferguson, Missouri. The facts didn't matter. The facts did matter. The experience of communities of color mattered from the 60s. If you don't know how that spun up, Ferguson, let me give you some details about how that spun up. So Michael Brown was shot and killed late afternoon that day. The ME in that county, the medical examiner in that county, was in another part of the county collecting deceased persons to take to the ME's office. And that body of Michael Brown laid in the street for more than 6 hours because of that. And as that body was laying in the street, if you don't know where that is in Ferguson, Missouri, where that shooting happened was at the edge of the projects the low-income housing for Ferguson, right at the edge of it. Just the backdrop was where all the low-income people live in that area of town. And so crowds began to gather as that body lay there hour after hour after hour. And then rumors began to spread. People began to say, what happened? This is what happened. Who shot this officer? Oh, this bad cop shot this officer. Oh, what happened? Oh, he was unarmed running away. He got shot in the back. Gossip. I think that's a sin, isn't it? Gossip is a sin.
Yes.
So that began to light the match that we don't know the name. The body lay there for six hours. And my experience, my grandmother told me back in the 60s, they sick the dogs on us. So I believe the rumor that he was shot in the back or running away. So thank God we hadn't had that happen here. It can happen anywhere, though. You have the same climate in all cities with this negative opinion about police. And so we try to be more forthcoming. We try to be more transparent. I usually don't let a news cycle come and go after we've had a police-involved shooting without giving some facts. It may not be the names yet, because what I will do, I will tell the officers, eventually we have to release your name because of the law. And I want you to take down all your family's social media footprint. Take down your Facebook page, take down your Twitter account, take down your mothers and all your kids. Stop, take it down, because once your name is in the public forum, people will want to harass you on social media. So we give them an opportunity to take down their social media footprint before we release their name, but we have to release the name. It's considered basic information in a police report. There's no exemption unless there is a specific threat to officers. So we follow the law. We're required to. Even if we didn't want to, we get sued and have to follow the law anyway. And in the meantime, we would have played into the hands of gossiping people, because most of our officers, it's a rare occasion where an officer won't follow our policy. Most of our officers are doing the right thing, and by not releasing the name, not following the law, you create more of an air of suspicion, and you play into the hands of gossipers.
Do you have a lot of discretion?
In the interest of the good Lord, with the next service, I'm going to close this. Let me say, Chief, that first of all, we're indebted and so honored that you were here. Tomorrow at 11 o'clock is the Jubilee Steering Committee meeting. At that meeting, you will hear Officer Ray Haley and Officer Bridget Wilson, who are integrated in the community, loved by the community, started a scout troop there, and earlier, in the early days of Jubilee Project, Sergeant Sheldon Smith was actually a coach of the Little League teams, and it has a profound positive impact. Now that's the good news. The bad news, as the chief said, was that we're back to square one in education. We collectively brought that O.M. Roberts School up to exemplary for 2 straight years, and then we closed it when the new building was built, and now they brought more students back in, and we're down at the bottom of the totem pole again, and we need to bring them up because of what the chief said on education. And in employment, we have high unemployment, and a large percentage of those people are formerly incarcerated individuals, ex-offenders. And so we are not through yet. There's a lot more that we can and must do. But in the interim, please, you have our loyalty and support, and thank you so much for being here.